How about an update from the conclave? What are you guys up to? What are you thinking about? What are you working on? We want details.
Oh, they're just all sitting back eating cheesecake and drinking cappuccinos and so happy that everything we predicted has come true. I mean, it's like the house of cards. Someone pulled out the card from the bottom, and we're just watching the cards fall. And it's going to take quite a while, but we are at an historic moment. We have seen now, it's just astounding, through the 5 different committees in the Congress and the Senate that are unrelentingly asking the DOJ and the FBI and other agencies for information and not getting it, proving their own guilt, that we are seeing the true fall of the shadow government. I mean, even that we revealed SES, the Senior Executive Service, we revealed who those people are. Now that's come out, and today in Truth News headlines is the beautiful report of how many people's salaries are not even reported on the budget each year. And it is shocking how much the deep state is paid. But all of these things are coming out. For instance, every single day we add new people to the list of the criminals who were part of the conspiracy for the coup d'etat against a sitting president. And before that, it was against a Republican candidate. And before that, it was against the president-elect. We've gone over this, and it's just beautiful that you can see it was called the small group, then it was called the Trump operation, then it was called the Secret Society, and then it was called the Mueller investigation, which was started, as we know, as a counterintelligence investigation. But it wasn't an investigation. It was an operation. And that's the reason Comey lied 3 times to the public in congressional hearings and to Trump. But what's really amazing is a year later, over a year after we said, wait a second, Comey just stated in a congressional investigation that he had met with Mueller after he got fired before he came and testified. He also now states that he even met with the Department of Justice.
Well, when we saw it happening, we thought, surely this can't be happening and people not understand this. But Thomas, it surprises me every day how asleep people are.
Well, they had been lulled into realizing that the Republic was lost and that once Hillary was elected, there was no more Constitution, U.S. Constitution. Your Bill of Rights had been flushed with the Patriot Act, so on and so forth. So everyone had basically given up, and as long as they, got the piece of the pie that the West can afford them, basically we live like kings and queens here in the West. You get your little piece of the pie, and you just go on, and you shrug your shoulders because you assume that your vote didn't do any good, because the Uniparty continues to do the same thing. And on one issue, the Republicans are on one side, and later they're on the opposite. I mean, look at the Democrats on DACA. They couldn't get any dreamers and a DACA program going back in the time that Obama was the president. So what do now? They act like they're for dreamers and DACA. No, they're not. Because they would have to pass legal legislation. And they have no intention of passing legal legislation because it is the illegal alien vote that props up the Democratic Party. They can't ever admit that they want that to continue. They are not going to create laws that people have to obey. That isn't what Democrats are about.
Well, that shows also how desperate they are to get someone to vote for them.
Sanctuary cities, sanctuary states, no need, you have to have an ID to do anything in America except to vote. And we know the voting corruption is just astounding. So we see that happening with DACA. But now people are worried right now because they say, what happened with Trump and the budget? Okay, let me explain again what happened. They were coming to a deadline, not only for the ceiling, but for the budget. And also, the budget contains the National Defense Authorization Act usually. And so when he got a 2-year budget, that means he just kept in place the National Defense Authorization Acts that Obama created to give him superpowers, martial law powers. And so Trump has kept those in place with this 2-year budget. Plus, as we now hear, 2 days after it passes, or a day after it passes, there's billions of dollars built in there for the wall, though the Democrats didn't seem to notice. He allowed them to steal a bunch of money, like continue Planned Parenthood. And what he says, there's a lot of money in there for the Democrats that he had to give them to get the deal done. Now, let's look at that deal. They had all this time to create a budget, and they've had years to create a DACA immigration plan. But it comes down to the wire and closing the government. And then the ceiling, the debt ceiling, so on and so forth. No. Trump was playing them. And during it, because he seemingly offered amnesty for DACA, which is never going to happen, by the way, in my opinion. That's my personal opinion. I can see him giving some a route to citizenship, but not amnesty. Remember, a route to citizenship can be 10, 15 years. And if you commit a felony during that time, you are deported. There's all kinds of things that can happen that stop that route to citizenship. Completely different than the complete amnesty that Obama was speaking about, giving every single illegal alien in this country. So we are at a historic moment when we are going to follow the rules, follow the laws. Since the time of Daddy Bush coming into the White House as vice president, and then his attempt to become president by assassinating Ronald Reagan, and then his continuing control through the Clintons, who were basically adopted members of the Bush family, and then through basically Obama still being controlled by Hillary Clinton. So when we remove that Jenga piece to the puzzle called Hillary Clinton, if she actually gets convicted on anything, you will see the house of cards completely fall. And as we said from the beginning, anyone who contacted her on a phone that was not secure while she was Secretary of State committed a felony.
What do you mean on a phone? Are you talking about
a phone?
Email?
A phone, a
Why
BlackBerry,
a phone?
A computer, an email, a text message. It doesn't matter
But
what.
why? Why a phone?
Anything. We also, because text messages were sent from Loretta Lynch and Barack Obama under disguised names to her friggin' phone. That's why I'm saying that. Okay? Do you get the point? The point is they all committed crimes and they all knew it. And we said from the beginning, that means the entire State Department practically, while she was there, committed crimes. Because why? Why? Does anybody ask why she put her server, made sure that it was not part of a secure system? Because Huma Abedin was running the pay-for-play, and all she did is give out the password so that you could get everything Hillary knew by simply Huma giving out the password. And eventually this will be found to be what was happening. So everyone who was paying to play got everything Hillary knew by having direct access. That's the reason they had to say, yes, there were foreign agents in her server. Of course there were foreign actors. Of course there were hostile nations getting her emails. That was the entire intent. Bill had one of his top advisors go to jail over this issue. Do you think the Clintons didn't know what they were doing when they set up a server that they thought they could bleach clean when the time came?
So Hillary, she syndicated her life. She put it all out there. You can pay and you can look at anything I'm doing.
Correct. That is what was going on. And she got mad, and Podesta got mad when Imran Awan's it was a built-in breach, a continuous breach from the Democratic National Committee server, and then also Podesta's emails, and also W. Osman Schultz's emails, and the entire DCCC's emails, and all of their traffic, all was captured. And we pointed this out recently in a long list of Comey crimes and all the spies he uses. But this was part of the plan. This was a complete open system for anyone who wanted to pay. It was like Christopher Steele's dossier. Anyone who needed to see it, Fusion GPS charged money for them to see it. Poor Christopher Steele, they probably paid more to see a copy of that dossier or even hear the content as they paid Christopher Steele $168,000. But remember, Steele didn't write the dossier himself. He had Glenn Simpson and his wife, Mary Jacoby. He had Nellie Orr, Bruce Orr. We had Comey's own reports given through Bruce Orr. And now we know that because we had said before who Cody Shearer was, that he was a very bad yellow journalist working for for Clinton, and that he would come out because, remember, the Grassley note asked for information and all communications involving a whole group of people. One of them was Jonathan Weiner, who we said, of course, he was a State Department Hillary fan who undoubtedly was part of working with the Steele dossier. Oh, yes, that's true. And so now he is, of course, come out and tried to give us alibi. And what did he say? The Russians were coming. The Russians were coming. I had to do it. And he even admits he passed it up to Victoria Nuland. Oh, my goodness. Ambassador Victoria Nuland, the crooked Victoria Nuland. She now is complicit in a conspiracy for a coup d'etat. Remember, before he became the president-elect, it was basically election rigging, which of course is also a felony. But after that, it was an attempted coup d'etat on an elected president. And once he was inaugurated, then it was an absolute seditious, treasonous coup d'etat. And so Mueller's investigation isn't the continuing coup d'etat. Remember, it had many names, which I pointed out again, even in this talk today. So what we are seeing is the fall of the deep state. And it's going to go back to Obama. It can't not go back to Obama.
Of course it's going to go back to Obama, and all these stations, media stations that dance around that issue, they're just foolish. Obama, he was the leader of this. Well, of course he had his own handlers, but he is complicit.
And he'll have to admit that the U.S. Digital Service certainly did rig the election. They just did a bad job and they didn't win. They just simply were sloppy.
Well, they'll have a lot of admitting to do, even that he's married to Michael.
Yeah, and the people who are coming out, the one I really like is Mark Warner and the corrupt Senate Intelligence Committee, always been corrupt since even the Republicans in that group are corrupt. But he, in March of 2016, before the dossier, this is the proof of what I just got through saying, just a few days, and the conclave's been saying all along, but I keep reiterating it. Comey worked with the Democratic National Committee from December 2015 on because in March of 2016, Mark Warner contacted Christopher Steele. Okay, Christopher Steele was already on the job by March of 2016, exactly as we said. Now that has come out. Or how about Adam Schiff, the man who wrote the Democratic memo, which had to be completely redacted because he revealed all the things he wasn't supposed to on purpose.
Of course, that is such a lame play. Everybody knew what he was doing.
As we said, there would be no way he could take the content that Devin Nunes and his group, Trey Gowdy and others, wrote as the Nunes memo and turn it bad. No way. Because these are facts. So what did he do? He wrote a bunch of nonsense trying to reveal that the process used by the Republicans was wrong, so it all had to be redacted. But in revealing the process, he revealed the true process. Why? Because he wasn't going to address any of the content. So what did he write? I think it was a 10-page memo. Probably, more than likely, it would only be a page or two that had anything to do with content, either of the Nunes memo or of the thousands of pages that the DOJ and the FBI reluctantly turned over and then threatened the committee. Rod Rosenstein then threatened the committee after finally turning over this material that turned into the Nunes memo. Threatened them. I mean, that's the kind of thing we're dealing with here. We're dealing with people who are jumping ship because they're guilty rats, and the smoking ship is making them jump, thinking that they can, get some kind of immunity or get into another job, and maybe they won't be included in the conspiracy because they know that if they include everyone in the conspiracy, it's hundreds of people. We said this from the beginning. The email scandal alone was hundreds of people. But then when you reach into the small group and the Strzok, Page, McCabe, what we called Comey's bunk buddies, when you reach into that group in the FBI that was conducting directly with Hillary's approval, John Podesta's approval, Barack Obama's approval, Valerie Jarrett's approval, Loretta Lynch's approval, Susan Rice's approval, none of them can get out of this now because the next memo is going to show the DOJ, the Department of Justice, connection. And that is a whole group of people, just like they named the people, 7 people who signed for the FISA court illegal Title I warrant. But remember, there's many more than one. They had one for Michael Flynn. They had one for George Papadopoulos. I keep saying this. When you were looking for international FISA warrants, don't look for Carter Page. That's domestic. And that's what it came out to be, a Title I, domestic. They claimed Carter Page was a spy. We listed a whole page of people who would be the spies of Comey who were working with the Russians. And so what we're seeing is, I keep repeating this, an historic moment where the revolution, where the coup d'etat and the overthrow of the republic that had been going on since 1781 was turned around. And the Second American Revolution, which Trump is leading without having to even lead it, simply by having morality and dignity and honesty and enforcing the rule of law, the Second American Revolution is winning. And we are at the moment that the enemy is now being identified, and we as alternative news guerrilla warfare Minutemen are just picking them off one at a time as they try to march back like they did in the first American Revolution. First they attack us, and then on the way back, the guerrilla Minutemen basically decimate them. And that's what's happening to the deep state in Washington.
Thomas, I'd like to point out two things that also show progress that we're making in this revolution, if I may. The first is small, but I thought it was a big step, and that is the GOP actually made their own YouTube video. And I had to chuckle at that. I just imagine, this is my imagination, they're watching Tom Fitton over there at Judicial Watch, getting more and more and more subscribers, and they're watching it, this whole alternative media sensation. How do you become a YouTube sensation? So anyway, they did their own YouTube and they've posted it, and of course now we threw it out into the network, so hopefully they'll get some traction. You guys, you've got to create your own content. You don't need to wait for the media to come and interview you. You can do your own thing and you can send it to the mothership. Now let's talk about that mothership. We have spent several years out here building an incredible decentralized alternative media network. And I'm not going to go into the machinations of how this vehicle works. But if you're connected into us at Truth News Headlines, the Americans for Intelligence Media, and also Americans for Innovation, then you are plugged in to the core component of the mothership. And if you will look below, in the description box, you're going to see a very important article that recognizes that you, Thomas Paine, have actually made it into the Americans for Innovation timeline. And why this is important is you'll remember our seminal piece on leader technologies and the theft of social media. And this is when really the forces of the Americans for Innovation and Aim for Truth came together to share the timelines that we had been creating separately and now have pulled together into an amazing document. I get a little frustrated. Let me wrap this up by saying, why are people spending so much time with these internet games and puzzles? I'm not going to give the name, when they could be going to these two sites and seeing indictable evidence to put these guys away in FEMA camps.
It does the alternative news no good for people to speculate. Get your facts together, folks. For instance, let me finish two things. Adam Schiff, he was pranked by a couple Russians who were going to sell him dirt on Trump, the same kind of dirt that Cody Shearer just made up, wrote up, gave to the evil Sidney Blumenthal, the one who Hillary Clinton, no matter what, couldn't get him a top secret security clearance. So she just went ahead and broke the rules and just shared with him everything. That was her counselor, basically, and she shared everything with him. So Sidney Blumenthal used Cody Shearer to write up a fake dossier, used Bruce Orr and to pass it on to Christopher Steele. But as we just said, Mark Warner from the Senate Intelligence Committee was in on this from March. So we are correct in what we said. Now, when we speculate, we tell you we speculate, but you know what? It sure feels good because we're sitting back, and I don't know anything that the conclave themselves, through me as a spokesperson, has said that has been wrong. Now, I have speculated on a few things, and I just want to point out, as I now thumb my nose at the conclave, yeah, that's right. that I've been right about Paul Manafort. I was right about Gates. I was right about so many of these things. I was right about that Comey why he was perjuring himself, that he had immunity from Mueller, that he would get Mueller as the special counsel, that on and on and on. We predicted so many of these things. We're just sitting back and we are slapping ourselves on the back with congratulations, because it's going to take a long time for this house of cards to fall. It's in slow motion. It's like in almost gravity-free environment. But it will fall. They just have to do it in the right order. And Trump is doing it the right way. He can't use any more pressure inside of a system that is already geared against him. He has to use those very people to fight the system. So as he makes these great victories in the Second American Revolution, whether it be 5 trillion saved from the climate accord, and Al Gore's climate warming nonsense has been turned into absolute a cube of ice. It's complete garbage. The very island that he was using, saying that the water was rising and this island that was going to sink is now rising up out of the ocean. Everything that was said about that in less than a year, we now know is garbage. We know that Comey's garbage. We know that Loretta Lynch is garbage. We know that unmasking from the White House was garbage. We know that the Russian rigged election, that's garbage. We know that this is now the third investigation of Russian influence in the election, and there was nothing found in any of them. And yet Mueller's investigation goes on as a counterintelligence probe, a black ops operation. Okay, this is a coup d'etat. Now, you don't want to just go after the members of the coup d'etat. You want them to reveal who they are. And as we said, the longer Mueller stays in the investigation, the more he reveals everyone. He came in to cover it all up. He's not covering up anything. As a matter of fact, General Flynn's, as we predicted, his charges will be dropped. The charges against Carter Page will be dropped. And why isn't Carter Page, by the way, suing anyone but just Yahoo News? Because he was, of course, Comey's FBI undercover agent. He was sent to be that person who would be targeted in the dossier. So just look at him and you'll see what's really going on, okay? And then look at the Uranium One and how that slowly is coming out. Look at the new false information that says that, by the way, Adam Schiff should be kicked off of the House Intelligence Committee because he tried to purchase dirt on Trump. That's absurd. And they have the tape of it. So
everybody out here in alt media is hurting.
It's absurd.
It's on YouTube.
He's such an idiot. And so, what he just did is he tried to make Trump look bad by Trump having to reject the Democratic memo. No, everyone rejects the Democratic memo because, Adam Schiff, you are an idiot. And anything Trump has said about you derogatorily,
I don't know. It seems to me it goes back to the voters that put him in place. It really is a reflection on these voters. Folks, we can do better. We've got to send better people to Congress.
People elected McCain over and over.
I'm telling you,
it's about money.
The Secretary of State needs to get on the ball in all of our states and look for this rigging. We need voter IDs. We have got to get a handle on this election process.
Voter IDs and a paper trail
that
can be looked at when, and it will happen, that the man-in-the-middle routine happens, which has been revealed by Leader Technologies, who you mentioned, and their Americans for Innovation. They showed how the man-in-the-middle works ever since the time of Karl Rove. So there has been absolute proof showing rigging of elections. That's not the issue. The issue is what was really going on. What was really going on is the exact thing they accused Trump of was going on with Hillary and Bill, and that is a Russian takeover of America, not only with uranium and the enrichment and downblending of uranium, and that is coming to light now. That's all the same people. That's Comey, that's Mueller, that's McCabe, that's Rosenstein. It's the same exact people committing these crimes, and they're there to protect Clinton. They were just going to keep on going.
That's what a domestic enemy looks like, people. They live here in your country, they're citizens, and they're working against you, the people. That's a domestic enemy.
These are domestic enemies. This is a conspiracy.
They were trying to overthrow the U.S. government and our way of life. We should be royally pissed.
Well, we should rise up. And as we're seeing, that these facts are coming out more and more, thank heavens, because of these congressional committees. They have to go around the DOJ and the FBI. The people at the top of those institutions, including Christopher Wray, and basically anybody who has been complicit with this, cannot be trusted. We need a complete new set of people at the top, and we need to fire the senior executive service and the executive services that work for the DOJ and the FBI, and do not allow them to intervene and stop the new appointees from doing their job. And these appointees would be best if they have never been federal attorney generals, because that is a corrupt system. The federal court system is corrupt. And some of these things are going to have to be tried, exactly as you've insinuated in your new article, in a tribunal, in a military tribunal. This is a coup d'etat. It has to be looked at as an attempt, literally, and a military attempt.
Well, I've been saying
subversion.
that for a long time. This has all got to go to military tribunals. I know we hear some chatter in the internet, but you always push back on me, Thomas, on that. What's changed your mind?
You're right, and I'm going to have to admit that in this case, I'm waffling here, and the reason I'm waffling is because it seems as if Jeff Sessions is worse than useless. He was put there by the Bushes. Yes. That seems to be what we are finding out.
We've given him the benefit of the doubt.
We tracked it back, and we see the Bush connection too deep and too long, and his corruption is also coming out. And so what we're finding out is, as we know, Trump, if he just goes around firing people, creates a firestorm, a huge firestorm. Jeff Sessions is going to have to step down. So what needs to happen is we need to show Jeff Sessions for who he is, but that's happening naturally. He will have to step down, and there will have to be a whole new set, dozens and dozens and dozens of people placed in the Department of Justice, the FBI, and the CIA, who can be honest, who can go in there and say, yes, the common person working in these organizations is just simply trying to be honest, keep their job. And yes, they have been pressured from the top, and they're going to be given amnesty. But I'm sorry, the only amnesty is going to be given to those who come forward as whistleblowers.
Yes, and they need to start coming forward. We're watching. You're on the clock.
They have to turn in the ones who committed the crimes.
But now, can't if they set up a military tribunals, then we can just bypass that little bottleneck called Jeff Sessions, correct? You just come over here and set up your military tribunals?
Well, Betsy, what I'm about to tell you.
Make it simple. What?
No, what I'm about to tell you is just grand.
Okay.
Because of the new budget for 2 years, Trump could do that. And because of his new executive order that declared a national emergency because of the crimes, they focused on, of course, human trafficking, but they mentioned all crimes. These are crimes. These are crimes against the state. So, yes, he could declare this. He already has declared it in a national emergency, but now what he needs to do is simply write an executive order that states that the U.S. Marshals are going to have now control of the top echelon of the FBI, the Department of Justice, and the CIA, and that all intelligence agencies are basically
rogue,
going to have to be audited completely, and yes, considered possibly rogue from the beginning, and then this will have to be considered he will just have to find whatever word he wants to use, but in his executive order, he covered everything, and in the 13 executive orders of Obama that have been tied together that give him amazing power, he may have to declare martial law within the bounds of Washington, D.C., because he is the sheriff, he is the chief law.
Oh my gosh, he could do that within the bounds of the Washington, D.C. Now, look, folks out here, it is very important that we give President Trump the support he needs to get this done, because you know when he does whatever action he's going to do, you're going to have a lot of screamers and yellers and shouters out there. But we outnumber them, and we need to be resolved. We need to support the president's actions, and everyone who's a first-tier alternative media creator, please make sure your audience does the same.
And because these are transnationalist, internationalist groups, for instance, Lockheed Martin's intelligence group, okay? Sorry. We can now turn around and say we're going to have a military tribunal and we're going to consider you a foreign agent because you work for foreign agents and you are an international company doing military intelligence for the United States of America. So they could literally use the military to arrest people and detain them without any rights, because that's what the Patriot Act, the U.S. Patriot Act, and then the U.S. Freedom Act says. It gives the president the right to arrest all of these people just for suspicion of a coup d'etat within the United States government. He could simply say this is going to be strictly within federal parameters, because he is in charge of all of these people, because he is the boss of the federal government, essentially. And he can, because of this national emergency he's declared, and because of martial law capacities that he now has that were set up for Hillary to have, he could do the opposite of what was going to happen. Here's what was going to happen.
Well, wait. So I know you're going to go there, but who would not want him to close off Washington, D.C. and separate it as the enemy from the rest of the United States?
And it is.
It is. They're the enemy, but what they were going to do was to say that we're all the enemy and they're in charge.
Yes. And the other thing is he'd have to create a district that would cover Manhattan. Mm-hmm. What is called the district, the southern and eastern districts of the U.S. Attorney General system. Because what happens in New York and happens in Washington, D.C. is where all the crimes go on, and they are going to literally have to arrest these people. But they're going to have to arrest them under suspicion of treason and sedition, because otherwise, these are slick lawyers. Look what Bill Clinton did. Bill Clinton got impeached. He got his law license taken away. He had to pay a fine, and he continued as the president.
So you need to make sure that the crimes that they're charged with cannot be tried in any of their corrupt courts. So that's why you've got to put them in military tribunals.
Yeah, and look what they got him for. After all the crimes of Clinton, it was for having sex with an intern, or relations, let me say. So what is going to have to happen here is we can't really try them on the big issues, because the big issues are too big. Let's take, for instance,
you could if it was military tribunals.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
These are crimes against the state, crimes against the federal government, crimes against the executive office, you see. And so what we can say is that Obama, after Trump became president-elect, allowed this to continue, you see. And if that's the case, then you can bring Obama, his administration, into this, and you can literally say there was an attempt to overthrow the United States executive branch. And that is a fact. We've said this all along.
We've seen it all. Look at the proof.
And the proof is coming out every day with all the... by the way...
Look at the timelines on the article that I've attached. Our timeline and the other timeline, it shows right there what has happened.
What we saw with Jonathan Weiner yesterday or the day before, and what we saw with Donna Brazil, is what we're going to see with all of them. They're going to sing like a songbird. They're going to turn in their bosses until it goes to the top, but only when they know that those people at the top won't be in charge later on. No one's going to turn in Robert Mueller when they know that anytime he wants, he can come back and be the head of any friggin' thing he wants, and then he can go after you. And never tell anybody, because most of this is covert black ops stuff. The FBI, and I've said this from a long, long time, counterintelligence no longer belongs in the FBI. Counterintelligence is supposed to only be used internationally. And calling Carter Page a spy and using the FBI for counterintelligence operation because of it, and then them supporting a false dossier, which then supported a rigged election, which then supported a coup d'etat. This just got completely out of hand, and Comey got completely nuts. That's the reason Mueller had to be called in, with all of the top worst lawyers in this country are helping Mueller. He called in the biggest criminals, parading themselves as lawyers, law enforcement people. No, lawyers aren't law enforcement, but these are criminals. Okay, Andrew Weissman, a criminal. Preet Bharara, criminal. Let's look at Eric Schneiderman, criminal. These people are in high positions, and they've been groomed just like a Michael Horowitz, who we'll have to see how he does. But remember, IG reports in FISA court didn't stop anything. Even when Admiral Rogers demanded a complete audit, that 99-page report still is barely being referred to. And it has as much damnable information as the Grassley memos or as the Noonan memos or any of these things, the text messages. But it really is the text messages. Remember, the text messages of Peter Strzok and Lisa Page are the ones they thought were scrubbed and cleaned. And yet now we pull out one that says Obama wants to get a complete report. A complete report on what? It doesn't matter. Whatever it is, that's a crime.
Well, maybe that was just in her fantasy head that the president wanted to hear what she had to say. So that's why we need to see all the texts.
Correct. And all 50,000 of them. Now, how long do you think that will take? No, a long time. What we need to do is simply, once we've seized the evidence, you arrest those people and tell them you're going to detain them in Guantanamo Bay until they either they don't have to, but they could confess and perhaps get a plea bargain, and then they could be released and perhaps even have presidential.
No. I want to see them.
I'm talking about the lowlings.
Okay, I want to see.
I'm talking about Jonathan Weiner, who says that it was the Russians, that he had to commit this crime. No. We'll let Jonathan Weiner walk as long as Hillary goes to jail, Bill goes to jail, Obama goes to jail, Valerie Jarrett goes to jail, Susan Rice goes to jail. Okay, those are the ones. And John Kerry goes to jail.
Well, I'm just saying.
They have to go to jail. This was an attempted coup d'etat.
I'm just saying. We got plenty of FEMA camp openings. We can put all the lowlings in those. Save Guantanamo Bay for the top dogs.
Well,
they're used to going to islands out there,
Good point. The top dogs are enemy combatants.
Right.
Put them in Guantanamo Bay.
People, you need to brace yourselves. The penalty for treason is death. You just need to prepare yourself for this.
Well, as Hillary said, if they found out what we were doing, we would all be hanging from our necks. And that has been said by many of them, that if anyone knew what they were doing, they would be hanging from a rope. That is correct. So, Betsy, an update is it's a romp through like, I don't even know what makes us happy. What makes a bunch of old men, who used to serve their government by putting their life on the line happy? It's to see Jonathan Weiner come out. It's to see Adam Schiff get caught. Remember, that happened a year ago, and now it comes up and it's like, oh, yeah, Adam Schiff, yeah, he's always been this way. Holy Lord, that means he's part of the conspiracy. Sorry, Adam, you just showed your hand. Sorry, Mark Warner, when you called up Christopher Steele, you showed your hand. Sorry, Victoria Nuland, we always knew you were corrupt. Sorry, Sidney Blumenthal, you belonged in jail from the first moment that we saw your name right next to top secret documents that Hillary Clinton carried out of SCIF rooms and the Department of State with top secret stamped on them, and took those things off, threw them in the garbage, copied them, and then sent them around to people. I mean, hello. That is the only crime you need to get her for. Okay, so new head of the Department of Justice, new Attorney General. One crime. That's all you need to get. Ignore the rest. Ignore the crime that is, ignore all the rest that aren't treason. She cannot get out of the fact. Take one crime, one piece of paper, one email. That's what you always do in the federal courts. And put her in jail for the rest of her life. Start with her as a military action.
But again, I say, treason in our country, the penalty is death.
That's my point. She needs to be on death row along with Bill and along with others.
And these are hard things for Americans to realize.
She killed people.
Yes, she did.
She used her unsecure phone in foreign hostile nations while she was talking about Benghazi. Does anybody have any doubt that she is the cause of that? Also, that she was involved in the selling of weapons. Also, that she was involved in giving uranium to Libya. Uranium One, let me put this real clear. Uranium One was Hillary Clinton allowing a company called Transportation Logistics International, to take enriched uranium from our own foundations, from our own industry, from Paducah, Kentucky. We dug it up, we blended it, and we enriched it, and we created yellow cake uranium that we sent to all kinds of enemies. Now, it is said that it was sent to North Korea. It is said that it was sent to Iran. Large shipments repeatedly over and over again. It said that it was sent to Syria for some reason, that it was sent to Pakistan. So we had Russians, and Vadim Minikin was, of course, convicted for this, but we had Russians protected by the FBI and the DOJ here taking enriched uranium and sending it to our enemies, sneaking it out of the country through Frank Justra's Uranium One through Canada. So those who want to say it's going through Cape Canaveral, no, it's not. It's going through Canada. The records are already there. So those who are speculating, please don't speculate on this stuff. Now, admittedly, Cape Canaveral was turned over to the United Arab Emirates, people who are our enemies, and they now have a 30-year, 35-year contract. They can bring this stuff in and out all they want, but hold it, stop right there. We've been bringing enriched uranium into this country from Russia since megatons for megawatts since Bill Clinton became president. So don't tell me that the stuff that is going, that you suspect that maybe there's some illegal shipments of uranium. There are more illegal shipments of uranium than you can shake a stick at. The U.S. Enrichment Company, let's say Daddy Bush, we don't know how much money he made from it. And somebody asked us just the other day, I want to give a shout out to the person who asked. It's very complicated. This person says that they may have witnessed the fact that an uranium enrichment foundation, an enrichment plant basically, was stolen and came up missing in America. Oh yes. 2 of those have already happened. But who enriches it now? In America, the only enriched uranium happening right now is owned by British, German, and French interests. So no matter what, Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton sold out Uranium One to anyone but to Americans. We don't even control the production of uranium. We don't control the digging up of uranium, the enrichment of uranium, the downblending, the shipping, the whatever, the selling of it to our own nuclear facilities.
Not to mention, we don't even need it. We need to be moving to thorium. But that's a conversation for another day.
That's the point.
Okay? I mean, it's just smoke and mirrors. But you know what? All of these places that are no longer working for U.S. interests, Trump can just take them over with all these executive orders now that are in play.
With the movement of uranium and Uranium One being connected to Hillary Clinton, that is a national security issue. She can be arrested and detained for what she has done. This is working with the enemies. And she was in an office doing this, as well as receive the Emolument Act says she can't receive money while she's in that office. She received $145 million. Bill received $200 million into the Clinton Justra Sustainability Growth Initiative. So those of you out there spouting this stuff off, acting like you know and you're speculating, please do not speculate. We have too many conspiracy theories that we have to fight all the time. We need to diffuse those and name the very people, name where the money went, name when it happened, just like we do.
Just get the top crime for treason. Everybody just focus in on top crime, treason.
One crime.
One crime.
That's all they need.
You figure out what it is, and you push that out through your network, and we need to see some arrests. Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you, Betsy.